Show me where your people was here with my people in the 1700s here in Georgia or Florida, Alabama, Tennessee.
Montezuma failed over there in the West, but you don't know the history. Some of them are going to say, oh, show me your family in the land in the 1700s. The 1700s. Everybody knew what was going on in Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, in the South in the 1700s. But let me make it better for you. I had to show this guy a map from 1539. I say, look, there's a town called Ichisi. Now, we know the Ichisi eventually became the Ochesi Creeks. But now the question is, who the fuck named the so-called people Ochisi or Ochesi? Ichisi, whichever dialect you choose to use. Who gave that name to the people in that town? Here's the answer: the Ichiti-speaking peoples. So you're asking me to show you in the 1700s, when in the 1500s, the people that spoke the same language, lived the same culture, called an outside people Ichisi and allowed them to settle on the Ocmulgee River. So these outsiders or Ichisi that became the Ichisi Creeks, the British allies, were already from the West. And that's in the 1700s. But in the 1500s, when they were on the Ocmulgee River and the Spanish saw, and this must be one of the most ancient towns, the ancient people that were already there were laughing like, nah, that's ancient land, but that's a new town. Spanish people couldn't understand it. They didn't understand. They didn't understand how things work. They didn't know that before they got there was a major war between the Yamasee, the Tuckahoe, and the Muskogee. And the Muskogee began to incorporate these women that were left without husbands into their families. Like I said before, the Okai, Yaha Tuscanugi. And you can find him in the book, The Invention of the Creek Nation. But if I go to my family land, I got his statue and his stone, and I can walk in the same places that he walked. I can go stand in the same place and look over the Chattahoochee and to Eufaula from the land that he stood and looked over from. I can go stand on the fort that was built on that land during our time of war against the United States. I can take you to the place where my ancestors, my family told me, oh, look, you see this place right here? This is where Jackson troops were throwing our family off because they didn't want to leave. But you want to call me the culture vulture, but you can't tell me your story. Let's go. It says, you are Afro. It says, if you are Afro-Indigenous, yes, but you are of Black and African descent. That makes no sense. And this goes back to what I said about Afro-Indigenous. They will give you Afro. The only way they will give you indigenous is by putting Afro in it. Afro-Indigenous. Afro-American. You're of African descent because you're dark skinned, even though you have our blood, but you look like them. Lookology. You say, well, yeah, that brother's he's Afro-Indigenous. Do we call niggas Euro-Indigenous? Do we call them Euro or Indigenous Euro? Do we call them Siberian Indigenous? Mexican Indigenous? We don't play that game because we've been treated wrong so bad. We've been done wrong so bad that even the fight that they go through, we put that on our shoulders. But they don't give a fuck about us. The majority of them don't. You can go look at the Cherokee chief when they say, oh, the only reason Black people want to get in the nation is because they want the money. But you're calling them Black, but the people were Cherokee. Nobody want to talk about how before the Cherokee actually became a nation by British standards, they were claiming that the Yamasee were their ancestors. And those in the South would not raise a fucking arrow against the Yamasee. But you want me to believe that they were that they were enemies. That's what you want me to believe. You want me to say, oh, well, the Cherokee had a lot of slaves, so you may be a Cherokee slave. But a lot of those Cherokee slaves or so-called slaves were their Yamasee family members. See, my grandma said something to me last year. She said, "Say it again."
Finding their families back, they wanted to connect again.
Yeah.
They knew where their family members were, scattered here and there. So when they had enough funds or enough capital to get them back, they bought them back. But yet they were still considered slave owners because they were slaves that they purchased.
They were looked,
But yet it was family members that they purchased.
Completely understood. I ain't got to explain that to them no more.
What's the name of the tribe again? Let's start with the Y.
Your master.
That way you. Okay. Okay.